Discover the surprising transformation of Catherine de Medici. From bride to relentless avenger, Catherine, Cat, Medici sat in her cramped office, the sunlight filtering through the dusty blinds, illuminating the chaotic papers strewn across her desk. Each legal brief felt like a monument to her struggle, a constant reminder of her father's tarnished legacy. The sweet aroma of fresh coffee clashed with the mustiness of old leather, as her mind raced, entangled in a looming confrontation with the corporate mogul threatening to engulf her. Cat's fingers danced nervously over a stack of documents, freshly printed evidence that could either redeem her father's name or obliterate her burgeoning career. Every time she closed her eyes, the whispers haunted her: failure, they murmured, imposter. She had always been defined by her father, a public defender beloved by the town, until a scandal sullied his reputation. Now, it felt as if she carried the weight of his shattered image on her shoulders, an inheritance she never wanted but was compelled to address. The sobering realization of the stakes had begun to unravel her. She questioned whether her desire for justice was a manifestation of vengeance or a mere plea for validation. As doubt flooded her veins, she thought of Marcus, her mentor and the moral compass she desperately clung to in this turmoil. In the diner where they often met, surrounded by locals imbibing the comfort of greasy fries, he would smile with warmth, offering a perspective that shone light in her darkest moments. But what if her pursuit of truth jeopardized their relationship? Was she willing to sacrifice that, too? What if you're wrong? She whispered to herself, feeling the anxiety tighten in her chest. Just as she started to find certainty, a darker shadow loomed. The upcoming court appearance felt like an impending storm, each tick of the clock amplifying her dread. She would face the mogul, a man cloaked in power and privilege, the face behind the whispers that had ensnared her father. The thought was suffocating. The images of her father's quiet smile interspersed with the grim expressions of those who wronged him filled her thoughts. With each breath came a sense of betrayal, a betrayal not only from the town that had once adored her father, but from the justice system he had fought to protect. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sitting in that diner, the walls closing in, Cat felt on the verge of a breaking point. What if she uncovered the truth and it tore apart everything she had built? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. She was not just fighting for her father's reputation, she was battling an oppressive weight that threatened to crush her. Restlessness gripped her as she wrestled with the moral dilemma between revenge and justice. Could she confront the mogul without losing herself? Would the pursuit of vindication become her undoing? As she prepared to rise from her seat, Cat's resolve hardened, crystallized by both fear and a burning determination. She glanced out of the diner window, where the world seemed blissfully unaware of the war raging within her. The clock was ticking, the courtroom awaited, and she stood at the precipice, ready to embrace her destiny. The courtroom was a cavern of judgment, excitement humming in the air like electricity. Cat's heart raced as she entered, her mind a maelstrom of anticipation and fear. Each step felt monumental, resonating against the polished marble floor, echoing her resolve. Columns of darkness loomed around her, but she stood defiantly, the weight of her father's name and her own shaping her stance. She was armed, not just with legal papers but with the truth she had unearthed, a truth that skated perilously close to consequence. The evidence, meticulously compiled and crafted through sleepless nights, danced in her thoughts. This wasn't merely a defense, it was a weapon, a chance to reclaim not only her father's honor but to carve her identity from the debris of her past. Was she ready to wield that power? The opposing counsel, a formidable figure whose reputation preceded him, radiated confidence. He sauntered into the room, smirking as if this were a game, and she a mere pawn. The visceral urge to shrink back welled up, yet Cat inhaled deeply, steeling her spine. As the proceedings commenced, intricate details of parentage, community justice, and ethical dilemmas flitted through her mind. Each question posed during cross-examination sought to tear down not just her father but her very existence. Was she his relentless avenger or a desperate daughter grasping at straws? The distinction was fading. The lines between sanctuary and battle were blurred, pitting her own identity against the expectations that had been placed upon her since birth. She heard her name called, an invitation to confront the jagged shards of her narrative. Rising, a flood of warmth coursed through her, a mix of adrenaline and purpose. As she faced the judges, she gathered her thoughts, crafting a narrative that transcended the confines of the courtroom. She would speak not solely for her father but for the silent voices of the downtrodden he had once defended. Justice, she began, her voice unwavering, is not just about righting wrongs, it is about acknowledging the humanity behind each story. In that moment, she discovered her purpose. Her articulation of truth resonated like a throbbing heartbeat in the silence that followed. As she laid out the evidence, the room felt both stifling and liberating, her words building momentum as they shaped the perception of her father's legacy. Bit by bit, she dismantled the facade her opponent had cloaked around their narrative. With each syllable, she transcended the role of a mere defense attorney, she became an architect, rebuilding everything that had been lost. Yet, clarity did not come without turbulence. Doubts began clawing at her thoughts, whispering reminders of her vulnerability. What if they rejected her plea? Losing this case could signify not just a personal failure, but a broader condemnation of those who sought justice. With shaky breaths, she pulled herself together, leaning into every word she articulated. Little did she know that this fierce declaration would ignite a new fear within her, a fear generated by the recognition of her own strength. For the first time, she glimpsed the future of Cat Medici, not through her father's shadow but as an individual with the capacity to redefine herself. As the gavel fell and the proceedings moved toward an imminent conclusion, the tension reached a breaking point. Nothing was guaranteed. Would the truth she fought for prevail, or would it crumble under the weight of corporate might? The courtroom doors swung open, echoing a possibility, a fork in the road. Would she accept the judgment handed down, or would she forge ahead to unearth the darker secrets that loomed beyond the immediate confrontation? The choices ahead began to crystallize, foreboding yet filled with potential, hanging heavy in the air like impending rain. Cat steeled herself for the verdict, aware that whether victory or defeat lay ahead, it would merely be the beginning of a much larger battle. The verdict reverberated through Cat's mind like an unanswered question, shattering the momentary stillness that enveloped her. When the judges retired to deliberate, she felt a mixture of dread and exhilaration. The past hours had scraped the surface of her resolve, pulling at the threads of her identity as she fought not just for a name, but for understanding in the midst of chaos. Each second spent waiting tightened the knot of uncertainty in her stomach. What would she do if the scales of justice tilted against her? As she stepped out of the courtroom, the air felt thick with tension. Conversations echoed around her, voices half-heartedly discussing the case as though it were just another headline. To them, it was an event. To Cat, it was everything. She squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to breathe, letting the sounds swirl and fade until all that remained was the sound of her own heartbeat. In the corner of the bustling hallway, Cat found a quiet space, a small alcove where the weight of expectation dissipated like morning mist. She leaned against the cool wall, letting the chill seep into her skin, grounding her thoughts. The outcome of her father's case was looming, a realization of dreams or a confirmation of her deepest fears. But whatever happened next, she would not slip back into the shadows. The unsettling silence of uncertainty spoke louder than any words of doubt. She pulled out the dossier that she had meticulously crafted, flipping through pages of evidence and notes filled with the tangible remnants of her journey. Each page was a piece of her growing strength, a testament to her relentless pursuit of truth. Within the seemingly overwhelming evidence, she discovered something transformative, a series of connections she had not seen before. Threads that intertwined not just her father's legacy but spoke to her passion for justice. What if she could transcend the role of a mere attorney? What if she could define this legacy as her own? It was a conviction that ignited an unfamiliar confidence. Kat began to formulate a plan, one that would grip the attention of the legal community, but more importantly, touch the hearts of those who felt voiceless. As she re-entered the courtroom, her demeanor had shifted subtly. The glimmer of determination replaced the uncertainty, and she clung to the possibility of retribution, not just for her father but for all the wrongs that had slipped through the cracks of justice. She felt the energy in the room change, the way her heart thudded with purpose. The gavel struck again, signaling the judge's return. The verdict was delivered with a hollow finality. Kat's heart sank like stone as she heard the decree, but there was an unfamiliar spark of rebellion ignited in her chest. The judges had spoken, but the narrative was not complete. She had more to fight for, and if this was not a victory, then it was merely a stepping stone. As the gavel echoed for the final time, Kat's eyes met the opposing counsel's. He smirked a fleeting victory, but Kat felt a boldness welling up inside, a fire that urged her toward the truth, the deeper, darker secrets her father had glimpsed but never revealed. She could unearth them. It was time to step fully into the role of Avenger. And amidst the despair, she finally recognized the weapons at her disposal were the very truths she had unearthed. Determined and resolute, she vowed to push forward. The battle she had begun needed to extend beyond these walls. Not knowing where this road would lead her, she felt the shifting of winds, an impending storm igniting. The moment for direct confrontation had arrived. Was she prepared to dive into the underbelly of the corporate structures that had shackled her father's legacy? Would she navigate the treacherous waters that lay ahead? She squared her shoulders, ready for the next chapter. It was not just about her father's name anymore, it was about her own identity and the fight that came with it. With a renewed sense of purpose, Kat stepped out of the courtroom into the world beyond, knowing the real battle had only just begun. And under the weight of dawning realization, one question burned bright: how deep would she go to uncover the truth? The air outside the courthouse felt electric, a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere inside. Kat took a deep breath, letting the cool breeze fill her lungs, and began to walk with purpose, her mind racing with possibilities. Each step away from the courtroom felt like a declaration. She was not just walking away from a defeat, she was stepping toward an awakening. As she navigated the bustling streets of the city, the world around her began to blur. People rushed past her, encased in their lives, unaware of the monumental shift that had occurred just mere blocks away. Her pulse quickened with every thought of the evidence she still needed to unravel. Unshed tears threatened to spill at the thought of her father's disappointment. She clenched her fists, transforming that grief into fuel for her mission. What had initially felt like a hollow verdict now seemed like an opening to probe deeper into the corporate machinations that had ensnared her father. Kat knew that the law was one realm where she could wield knowledge like a weapon, and with every name, every corrupted figure connected to her father's case, she could craft a narrative of justice. There was potential, not just for revenge, but for something that encapsulated a larger truth. Determined to deepen her understanding, she returned to her office. A quiet sanctuary amongst the chaos outside, it awaited her with the familiar scent of old books and the awkward clutter of half-finished cases. She spread her father's dossier across her desk, running her fingers over the pages, trying to discern the details which so often eluded her before. As she read, she felt a surprising sense of clarity wash over her. Highlighting key figures, she began to knit together their stories, a chain of greed and corruption that flowed directly into the forefront of her father's downfall. Each connection she made illuminated pathways to uncover the truth, allowing her to step beyond herself and redefine her role. But along with this clarity came a quaking sense of foreboding. She could sense that her search for justice would lead to dangerous confrontations as she poked at the hornet's nest of corporate malfeasance. Late into the night, she found herself surrounded not just by files but by the essence of her father's life, the sacrifices he had made for the truth. The question of whether she was prepared for the ramifications of her inquiry lingered in the back of her mind like a distant echo. What if those she sought to expose retaliated? What if the darkness she uncovered became her own? With every tick of the clock, she felt the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders. This wasn't merely her father's fight, it was hers now. She had to confront her fears head-on, demanding the legacy that she refused to surrender. The reality twisted in her gut, her heart racing. With resolution filling her, she made a decision. This would be her first act of vengeance, not against the adversaries she would soon face, but against the fear that threatened to paralyze her. Armed with newfound confidence and a nascent strategy, Kat stepped away from her desk. She knew she would need allies, people who shared her vision and could help navigate this treacherous world. Leaving her firm the following day, she sought out one name that stood out amidst all the people tangled in her father's narrative, a journalist known for exposing corporate corruption. To reach him, she would need to be persuasive, weaving her father's story into a compelling plea for partnership. This was a step into the unknown, a direct confrontation with the system that had boxed her father in. The moment of truth loomed. Would she be able to convince him that their goals aligned? Or would she be yet another voice lost in the noise of disillusionment? Taking a deep breath, she set her course. The stakes had never been higher, and yet, she felt the sharp edge of purpose guiding her. As she reached for her phone, the tension coiled tight within her, a thrilling, terrifying prelude to the confrontation ahead. Would the journalist believe her, or would this be yet another door closing in her face? The answer awaited as she pressed call with trembling fingers, the weight of her father's legacy riding on the line. The phone rang, each tone reverberating against the walls of Kat's office like the countdown of a bomb. Her heart raced as she imagined the moment he would pick up, a cascade of words bursting forth. She could almost see her father's eyes, filled with trust and expectation, the way they regarded her when she first declared her ambition to enter law. She had wanted to serve the innocent, to protect the vulnerable. Now, that dream had evolved into something darker, an obsession with the truth tied intricately to vengeance. As the call connected, the journalist's voice crackled over the line, deep and measured. "Hello. This is Alex Reed. Mr. Reed, my name is Catherine Lore, and I'd like to discuss something significant with you," she began, her voice steady despite the chaos in her stomach. Her mind raced, weaving together the pieces of her father's story and her own desperation. "Significant? I get a lot of calls. Why should I pay attention to yours?" His tone was flat, laced with disinterest. Kat forced her breath to steady. "Because this is personal. My father, he was the victim of corporate malfeasance, and I have evidence that could implicate those responsible." Each word dripped with urgency, the weight of her purpose pushing her to articulate her thoughts clearly. After a brief pause, Alex replied. "Corporate malfeasance is a broad term. What exact evidence are you referring to?" She tilted her head, glancing at the scattered files on her desk. "I have documents linking several key figures to fraudulent activities that led to my father's downfall. He was framed to protect a high-profile project in his company. I'm asking for your help to expose this." His silence stretched into disbelief, making her quiver with anxiety. Then came his cautious interest. "If what you say is true, this could be explosive. But I need to see the evidence before committing to anything. I don't stake my reputation on hearsay." The prospect of sharing her findings ignited a flicker of the triumph she longed for. "I can meet you tomorrow. I have everything organized. You'll see the pieces make sense. Together, we can turn this case upside down." "All right," he reluctantly agreed. "Email me the details, and I'll meet you at the diner on 5th. But make sure you bring your A-game. I don't have the time to waste on wild goose chases." As she hung up, exhilaration coursed through her veins, merging with fear. Each step deeper into this labyrinth ignited her resolve but also made her acutely aware of the stakes. If she stumbled, not only would her father's reputation be at risk but also the thread of hope she was weaving for herself. Realizing the gravity of what lay ahead, Kat flipped through the files again, absorbing every detail. She had to arm herself with facts, figures, and an unshakable grasp on her narrative. Every polished word would be a stepping stone toward unearthing the truth, but would it be enough? She paused to reflect, a whole new layer of self-awareness creeping into her psyche. As she meticulously organized the documents, she recognized her evolution. This was not just a quest for justice, but a transformation from a naive young lawyer to a fierce advocate for truth. She was learning to harness her intelligence, her will, and her emotions as tools, no longer merely reactive but strategic. Still, doubt licked at her confidence. Could she really rally an experienced journalist to her cause? What if Alex's involvement attracted unwanted attention from those she intended to expose? It was a risk, and yet what was the alternative? Closing her eyes momentarily, she braced herself for the impending meeting. The storm of ambition and fear churned within her, but she steeled her resolve. Tomorrow would be a test, not just for her father's legacy, but for her own burgeoning identity. The weight of the moment felt laden with potential, as if the universe itself had flared in anticipation. As she prepared to call it a night, Kat's determination crystallized. This opportunity could launch her into a battle she was fiercely ready to fight. With every flickering shadow cast by the desk lamp, Kat understood one thing: this was her fight now. The journalist might see her as an ally, but she had to convince him, and in turn, herself, that what she was seeking was more than a story. It was her path toward reclaiming her father's truth. As she drifted off to sleep, visions of what lay ahead danced through her mind. The next day would bring her face to face with a world she was ready to challenge. Would she have the strength to confront those cloaked in power? The thought echoed, lingering like an unanswered question in the dark. The time was approaching. She just hoped she would seize it. Kat awoke with the dawn, the sunlight filtering through the blinds, casting lines across her desk, emphasizing the shadows and dust that had gathered in her pursuit of truth. The weight of expectation hung heavy like a shroud. Today was the day she would bridge the gap between her father's past and the future she desperately sought. As she dressed with meticulous care, every choice from the crisp collar of her shirt to the polished black flats was deliberate. The attire reflected her meticulously crafted strategy. This was her armor for the battlefield of reputations and revelations. In the solitude of her morning ritual, Kat found herself brainstorming how to present her evidence effectively. This meeting was pivotal, and it required precision. She couldn't afford to stumble when faced with an experienced journalist whose skepticism could easily undermine her cause. But it was more than that. This moment represented the culmination of countless evenings spent poring over old case files and reconstructing her father's legacy. Each revelation had chipped away at her naivete, building a foundation of fierce resolve. Arriving at the diner, she felt the buzz of anticipation mingled with anxiety. The scent of brewed coffee filled the air, but her pulse raced not from caffeine, but from the high-stakes unfolding. She smoothed her skirt and adjusted her grip on the binder containing the lifeblood of her father's story, the evidence she had painstakingly assembled. Each page was a testament to years of deceit, and she was ready to claim it. As she took a seat at the booth, her mind raced. Was her anger justified? Did her quest dance precariously between justice and vengeance? The echoes of her father's trials lingered like a haunting melody, reminding her that this journey could easily spiral into something unrecognizable. But in that solitude, Kat also felt a flicker of her father's unwavering spirit. She had inherited his relentless pursuit of truth, and today, she would wield it like a weapon. Alex arrived moments later, his tall frame blocking the sunlight as he slid into the booth across from her, his expression unreadable. Kat met his gaze, a vault of determination welling within her. "Thank you for coming. Let us get straight to it," he said, his voice devoid of preamble. "Show me what you have." The directness cut through her nerves, sharpening her focus. Kat slid the binder across the table, feeling the weight of scrutiny shift as he began flipping through the documents. Each page turned was a test of her conviction, every word dissected under his experienced eyes. "Impressive," he replied after several tense minutes, his brow raised slightly. "But impressive isn't enough in this business. I need a narrative that resonates." She swallowed hard, fighting the instinct to retreat behind her corporate veil. This was precisely the moment she had rehearsed countless times in her mind. My father wasn't just a pawn, he was a man with dreams, crushed by the very people he trusted. This isn't simply a corporate downfall, it's the story of betrayal. It's personal. Alex's eyes narrowed, as if weighing her words. Personal doesn't sell unless it packs a punch. What you need to confront those involved. What will you do when they come after you? A shiver coursed through her, igniting the protective fire within. I refuse to be another victim. They can't silence the truth forever. The tension between them throbbed until Alex leaned back, arms crossed, and regarded her anew. You have guts, Cat. But guts won't save you if you face reprisals. If I'm in, we need backup, a way to protect you and the story. That prospect ignited another layer of determination. She wasn't just fighting for her father anymore, she was transforming into someone formidable, someone who demanded accountability. Then let us strategize together. I won't back down, and I won't go alone. His expression shifted, intrigued. For the first time, he saw not just a young lawyer but a relentless advocate rising from the ashes of her father's legacy. In that moment of connection, both were acutely aware that they were on the precipice of something that could either liberate or ruin them. As they began discussing strategies and potential allies, Kat could sense the shift. She was carving out her own path, no longer defined by the past but by the strength she was generating in the present. She was building not just a case, but a fortress of truth around her burgeoning identity. But would they be ready for the gusts of resistance that awaited them? The din of the diner faded into the background as the reality of their undertaking hit with force. The time had come to face the unknown consequences of their quest for truth, and Kat silently questioned, was she ready to play this dangerous game, with the stakes rising higher than her father's legacy? The answer loomed like an approaching storm, ready to break. The clinking of cutlery and the low din of conversations filled the diner, but Kat was enveloped in a sphere of heightened focus. Her conversation with Alex marked a turning point, and adrenaline pulsed through her veins, sharpening her mind. Each plan they discussed became a stepping stone, breathing life into what she had once considered mere revenge. Now, it was evolving into a quest for justice. The difference was monumental. First things first, Alex stated, leaning forward, his sharp gaze intent. We need to map out your strategy and identify potential allies. Friends from your father's past. Kat nodded, her thoughts racing. She could think of a few former colleagues of her father who might offer insights, but trust was a precious commodity, and she needed to tread carefully. There's Henry, she began, her voice growing steadier. He worked closely with Dad at the firm. If anyone knows the behind-the-scenes politics, it's him. That's a good start, but remember, you need to be prepared to defend yourself from those who won't welcome your truth, Alex reminded her, his tone both pragmatic and supportive. That half-smile of his, the one that made her feel capable, surged her confidence. For the first time, doubt felt manageable. Yet the worry flickered beneath. She had always been cautious, relying on a calculated approach in her career. This endeavor required an unmasked authenticity and embraced risks. She was stepping into a world that demanded more than facts, it needed passion and grit. What's next? Kat asked, her eyes narrowing in ferocity. With every word, the fire in her chest burned hotter. Let us craft the narrative that will resonate with the audience, Alex proposed. You're not just telling a story, you're creating a movement. Think beyond your father, think about all the lives affected by the same corruption. As they brainstormed, every idea she offered felt like a revelation. With each suggestion, Kat began to unearth layers of her own experience, challenging her complacency. She recalled conversations overheard in boardrooms, the hushed whispers of anger over lost opportunities, not just for her father but for so many who just faded into silence. Success isn't just about the truth itself, it's about how you present it, Alex remarked, as he encouraged her to embrace her narrative fervently. Kat could feel the duality of her emotions. Determination emerged from the shadows of doubt. Suddenly, a shadow flickered across her thoughts. What about the pushback? The idea of confronting those who had wronged her father shook her momentarily. Could she risk everything she had achieved in her professional life by unveiling the mess underneath? Cat, Alex's voice cut through her reverie, you must build resilience. If they oppose you, a fallback plan is essential. His calm demeanor steadied her, urging her to reclaim her narrative. Resilience, she mused. That word resonated deeply. For far too long, she'd been merely surviving in the shadow of her father's reputation. Now, she was on the brink of rediscovering her own identity. What if we leverage social media to amplify our message? Kat suggested, emboldened. We could create a campaign, rally supporters, expose the betrayal on a broader platform. Exactly. Reach the masses, Alex encouraged, his excitement palpable. But remember, once you put this into motion, there's no turning back. Are you truly ready for that? In that moment, Kat felt solid ground beneath her. The risks were tangible, as were the consequences. Yet, her heart surged with conviction. It was no longer just about her father's legacy, this was about her own evolution. She would no longer be a footnote, she would claim her chapter. With her newfound clarity, Kat envisioned allies coming forth, standing beside her as they unfolded the narrative. But that visualization was juxtaposed with a piercing thought, who might turn against her once the truth came to light. Hair prickling on the back of her neck, she contemplated the adversaries lurking in the shadows. Fear began to creep in, yet it was marked by determination, an unwavering pulse urging her forward. As they wrapped up for the day, Kat knew the real battle lay ahead. Would her pursuit lead to reinvention or ruin? Shifting her weight, she felt the tension coiling around her heart, knowing this was only the prologue to a much deeper confrontation. And as she stepped out into the fading light, a question loomed: how far would she be willing to go to unveil the truth before it consumed her? The morning sun streamed through the cafe windows, casting golden rays on the wooden tables. Kat sat at her usual spot, a half-cold coffee in front of her, while her mind churned with plans. The stakes felt higher than ever, the thrill of stepping into her father's world now danced with shadows of anxiety. Today would require her to confront her fears and take real action. She picked up her phone, scrolling through her contacts until she found Henry's name. Taking a deep breath, she hit call. Her heart raced as she waited for him to answer, her thoughts flickering between excitement and dread. What would he say? Would he help, or would he turn her away? Each ring felt like a reminder of the distance between who she was and who she needed to become. Kat. Henry's voice was familiar, yet it resonated with a hint of hesitation. It's been a while. What is going on? Henry, I need your help, Kat replied, the determination in her voice warring against lingering self-doubt. It's about Dad. I want to expose the corruption he was a part of, and I think you might be able to help me navigate it. Silence stretched, filled only by her mounting anxiety. His response hovered in her mind, and she wondered if she had made a mistake if she could handle the weight of the truth alone. I don't know, Kat, he finally said. That's dangerous ground. People are protective of their secrets. Whether they touch your father's legacy or not, I can't risk my career. A chill washed over her, but Henry's reluctance only fueled her resolve. Surely you've seen what's happening, she pressed, urgency edging her voice. The lives ruined, the families torn apart. We can't just stand by and let it continue. This needs to come to light. His sigh was heavy, laden with years of navigating the complexities of their shared past. You know, I respected your father. He had his reasons, and you might not like what you uncover. Then let me uncover it myself, Kat insisted, no longer a mere vessel for her father's legacy. This is bigger than all of us. If you want help, I'll reach out to others. Think it through, Kat. This path leads to more than just information. I know it's risky, but isn't that worth it? The fire within her flared, igniting her daring spirit. If I fail, at least I want to be a ghost living in my father's shadow. After an agonizing pause, Henry replied, "I'll think about it. Meet me at the old coffee shop tomorrow. We can talk." The connection ended, and Kat placed her phone down, her heart pounding. The bracing certainty of her direction filled her, yet the specter of what awaited loomed ever closer. This was just the beginning. She would need to grow into this new role, a relentless seeker of truth, ready to face whatever obstacles crossed her path. The familiar fear began to creep in, yet it was a different kind of fear this time. This was the fear of discovering her own capacity, the fear of stepping fully into her agency. She ran her hand through her hair, feeling the tension of expectations. The cafe buzzed around her, oblivious to her internal strife. With each moment, she could feel the momentum building. It was as if the surrounding noise was urging her to leap forward. What would her next move be? The lines were blurred between reckless ambition and courageous advocacy. Each decision felt momentous, each interaction a potential turning point. As she gathered her things, Kat glanced at the door, weighing her resolve against potential repercussions. The question lingered in her mind: how could she truly prepare for the truth she was about to confront, knowing it might change everything? Her heart raced with anticipation. Tomorrow could make or break her resolve. Staring out into the sunlit street, she dared to envision a future where she wielded the power of her own narrative. And yet, lurking just beneath that vision, dread whispered what alliances would be forged, and at what cost. Would she find support, or was betrayal waiting just around the corner? Only time would uncover those truths. The following morning, dawn broke with a sense of urgency. Kat rose from her bed, shaking off the discomfort that clung to her like a second skin. Each tick of the clock felt amplified, a countdown to her meeting with Henry. She felt precariously suspended between her old self and the burgeoning advocate she was beginning to envision. She dressed carefully, choosing a blue blouse, a color symbolizing depth and trust. In some way, it felt like an armor. Each button she secured represented a resolution, each fold of fabric served as a reminder of her purpose. The mirror reflected a woman ready to confront her past and reshape her future, yet within that clarity, uncertainty still gnawed at her stomach. As she made her way to the old coffee shop, Kat's heart echoed the rhythm of her resolve. Could she ensure Henry would take her seriously? Would he see her transformation, or would she remain just a shadow of her father in his eyes? Once inside the shop, she found a cozy seat in the corner, a vantage point that allowed her to observe the ebb and flow of life outside. The steam from her coffee curled dramatically, and she clutched the mug tightly, feeling the heat seep into her palms. Time seemed to stretch as anxiety coiled in her stomach. The thought of once again relying on someone else gnawed at her. It was time to own her path. As the minutes passed, she reflected on how long she had allowed herself to remain invisible, how often she surrendered to the expectations of those around her. When Henry finally arrived, he hesitated at the entrance, scanning the room until his eyes landed on her. His expression was layered, concerned yet curious. As he approached, Kat stood defiantly, determined not to be undermined by their history. "Kat," he began, his voice edged with caution. "I've been thinking." "Good," she replied, her tone steady, masking the tumult within. "Because I've made my decision. I want to dig deeper, and I need you to help me make sense of everything." Henry sighed, visibly torn. "It's a slippery slope. You might uncover things that will haunt you." "There are forces at play that I'm willing to confront them," she interjected, the urgency in her voice solidifying her intent. "Living in ignorance is not an option anymore. I'd rather face the truth and the risks than hide behind the guise of family loyalty." His gaze softened slightly, acknowledging her resolve, yet a flicker of fear lingered in his eyes. "You have no idea how deep this goes, the people involved. Then let us figure it out together," Kat urged. "I refuse to be sidelined in my story. I want to reclaim my narrative, not just react to it." They locked eyes, the silence pregnant with potential. Henry seemed to measure her conviction against the realities he had faced over the years. Finally, he nodded, a barely perceptible sign of agreement mixed with concern. "All right, but understand this, if we proceed, there's no turning back. You'll need to be vigilant. Vigilant? I can do that. I welcome it, she said firmly, the fire inside her kindling even stronger. What do we need to uncover? With that, the conversation shifted gears, and Kat found herself grappling with layers of deception and secrecy. The predicaments woven into her father's legacy tangled together with ambitions that should never have become synonymous with his name. Henry shared details she thought she would never hear, revealing a world filled with shadows and threats, ones that would loom larger than she had dared to imagine. Hours slipped away, but it was another revelation that left Kat trembling. There's a dossier documents indicating financial discrepancies. It could crumble the empire built on these lies, Henry explained, the weight of the information anchoring Kat in both exhilaration and dread. Her mind raced. She had never considered the volume of proof that could exist, nor the impact of seeking it out. Yet now, it was the edge of her next leap. Days ahead blazed with potential, the blueprint of her path was clearer yet fraught with danger. As they finished planning, Henry's expression shifted again. Wariness creeping back in. I hope you're ready. You may encounter more than just people wanting to hold on to their secrets, you might face those willing to defend them at all costs. A chill settled in the pit of her stomach, but Kat squared her shoulders. The moment of truth was rapidly approaching. In that frame of thought, she realized this was more than unearthing a family mystery, it was about reclaiming her identity, a battle she was both terrified of and determined to win. As she walked out of the coffee shop, purpose coursing through her veins, she realized she was standing at the precipice of her own evolution. Would she be able to transform this burden of truth into the foundation of her strength? The real question loomed like a dark cloud overhead, heavy with implications. Who else would seek to protect their secrets, and what would they do to stop her? Tomorrow would test everything she was becoming, and Kat had no intention of backing down. The fight was just beginning, and she was ready. Catherine de Medici stood in the hushed expanse of the conference room, poised like a warrior before battle. The walls were adorned with the accolades and slender shadows of her father's legacy, a legacy now riddled with scandal. With the borrowed time from the past seeping through the cracks of her consciousness, she was ready to confront the moment that could redefine her future. Today marked the culmination of months of painstaking research, alliances formed, and a web of truth unraveled. The journalist Alex Reed sat beside her, his presence a constant reminder of the power she now wielded. As the room filled with the murmurs of colleagues and legal advisors, Kat clenched the legal brief in her hands, breathing in the truth she had unearthed, convinced this would set her father's name free. As the presentation commenced, she felt these past several months flow into her like a river, collecting the fragments of her evolving identity. Her voice rose above the chatter, unwavering and resonant. Today, we unveil the narrative that led to the betrayal of not only my father but countless others. This isn't just a story, it's an opportunity for accountability. Each slide illuminated the undeniable evidence of corruption she had painstakingly marshaled. The glances of disbelief transformed into recognition, then resolve. Her colleagues began to murmur, their expressions shifting. She was no longer just the daughter of a disgraced public defender, she was an agent of change. In that moment, she comprehended her metamorphosis. She had transitioned from a frightened girl under the shadow of her father's reputation to a powerful force in her own right. As she spoke, her hands trembling slightly yet filled with determination, she recognized the weight of her own voice. We aren't merely here to dig up dirt, we're here to breathe life into the importance of justice. We owe it to those who suffered in silence, we owe it to those who were lost in shadows. When she concluded, there was a palpable silence, an acknowledgement of her bravery piercing through the stillness. The room erupted into applause, and as she met the eyes of her colleagues, she saw the dawning respect. Kat was no longer perceived as the simple defender of her father's name, she was hailed as a formidable attorney whose fight had just begun. Days later, the initial report celebrated her success. Articles highlighted the unveiling of a widespread scheme that not only cleared her father's name but implicated those who lurked in the corners of corporate deceit. Kat sat in her office, the sunlight pouring in like validation, and the bold headlines glistening with the promise of newfound beginnings. As her phone buzzed with notifications, she realized the impact she had made extended beyond her father's vindication. It reached out to an entire community yearning for justice. She had gathered stories from the downtrodden and woven them into her tapestry of fighting spirit. It was an epiphany. She wasn't just pursuing revenge, she had created a movement. With the courtroom triumph behind her and her father's name restored, she began brainstorming initiatives to support those wronged by corporate avarice. It wasn't merely about redemption now, it was about rewriting the narrative. One afternoon, while seated in that same diner with Marcus, her former mentor, she shared her vision. Excitement bubbled through her, infusing their conversation with a frenetic energy. "I want to create a network that helps those wronged find their voices," she proclaimed, her resolve solidifying. "I want to ensure that others don't face the same fate as my father." In that moment, Marcus smiled, pride evident on his face. "You've done it, Kat. You've not only reclaimed your father's legacy, you've carved out your own. Your journey has inspired many." She felt the warmth of his words wrap around her like a cloak, fortifying her ambitions. This was her life now, no longer defined by the past, but propelled by an urgency to write a new chapter in the saga of justice. The weight of her journey melted away, replaced by a robust sense of accomplishment. Her father would be proud not merely for the justice served, but for the young woman standing confidently in her own skin, illuminating paths for others. With a sense of unwavering strength and clarity, Kat stepped out of the diner, her eyes set on the horizon. She had not only conquered her fears but had forged a path to redefine the concept of legacy itself. As she strode confidently into the future, she considered the far-reaching implications of her journey. She was ready to face whatever challenges awaited, a harbinger of justice reborn. This was her moment. Now, more than ever, she understood the profound truth. Each battle fought and each revelation uncovered could forge unbreakable connections, elevating her as a champion of change, a relentless avenger of truths long hidden. And in that triumph, she knew that her legacy had only just begun to unfold. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like now to feed the algorithm. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's ignite this journey together.